Welcome to the 12 o'clock hour here on 1150 AM WDEL. This is Delaware's Timeline. I'm your host, Carl Suppa. This is a show that brings you the behind-the-scenes stories of Delaware's historical past. We have two popular topics today that I think everyone will find very interesting. We're talking baseball and brewing with John Medkeff Jr., who's a Delaware beer historian and the vice president of the Diamond State Baseball Club, and Jeff Swampy Kabacinski, president of the Diamond State Baseball Club. Guys, thank you for coming in and joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Carl.
Thanks.
Now, can you each, John, we'll start with you, give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. I'm born and raised in Delaware, in Wilmington, and obviously lived here all my life, and have always been fascinated with history, local history in particular, and have been a big fan of baseball since I was a boy, and loved beer for as long as I was able to drink it, and so, the two have kind of intersected.
How about you, Swampy? Is it okay to call you Swampy?
You can call me Swampy. It's kind of one of the deals on our team. Everyone has a nickname, and you answer to everything, right? I'm a native Michigander. I grew up in the sort of the far suburbs of Detroit, outside of Ann Arbor. I also, like most boys, grew up loving baseball, and I'm also a bit of a history buff as well. So, a little baseball, a little history, put the two things together, get out and get some exercise, and we just have a great time.
Do you like the beer as well?
I do like some beers, yeah.
Well, what exactly is vintage baseball?
Well, vintage baseball is the game of baseball played by customs, rules, and replica equipment. It can be any era. There are some teams that play as late as 1920s, 1930s era baseball. They'll play with old-fashioned gloves and that kind of thing from the era. Our particular team, we play the immediate post-Civil War era.
Oh, okay.
We play by rules of 1864 largely, although in some instances we go play other teams that would like to play by rules of 1872, 1868, different rules, and they sort of explain to us what the differences are year by year, and then we set them up and play a game.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that was.
Oh, that was your. What makes it so different? The rules you play by versus the modern game.
Well, the first thing is when you come and look at it, the thing that strikes me, anyways, is that how similar it is to modern baseball. It's actually there's still 3 outs per side. There's still 3 strikes to an out. There is only 3 balls for a walk. Some of the first things you notice, though, that are different is the pitcher's a lot closer. He's pitching underhanded. On fly balls, you can catch the ball on one bounce, and the batter is out.
Wow. I said wow again. I promised I wouldn't do that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, that was the rule up until 1865. In the 1865-66 off season, they changed it to where you had to catch the ball in the air. So when we play by the rules of some different years, that changes a little bit.
Right.
One other thing you'll notice right away is that we don't have the dirt base paths. We just play on a large field of grass, and that's how baseball was played back then.
One of the things I did notice right away was you guys don't play with any gloves.
Oh yeah, that.
Hence the one bounce rule.
Right, that does help. I mean, if you're not playing with a glove and you can then catch it on a bounce, that helps.
Oh, okay.
You can wait for that thing to bounce, and although there is an advantage if you catch it on a bounce and there's a runner on base, he no longer has to tag when that ball bounces. So there's an advantage to trying to catch it in the air, because then you make the runner go back.
How does that feel in a month like April, catching that ball with your
I'm not going to lie. It hurts from time to time. It depends how, if you're, say, standing at third base and someone really smacks a hard liner, especially if it's just a team practice or something, man. You don't.
You're gonna feel it.
Yeah, you especially if it's a practice, you might want to let that one just go by. I'll wait for the game to try that one. But yeah, it takes some getting used to. And at least for me personally, I found that even warming up beforehand, tossing a ball around, it wasn't quite the same unless you had done it for months. In my first year, I got better at it as the year went on, even though I wasn't necessarily throwing with someone every day.
Oh, okay.
So you're even though
you're used to it.
you can employ some strategies like bringing your hands back with the ball to sort of cushion the blow, that kind of thing. But also you just have to condition your hands to it.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, so and catch with your palms. That's very important, rather than your fingers.
Oh yes, very much.
You'll break your finger.
If you have any questions for either John or Jeff, I keep wanting to call Swampy. I'm just going to go ahead and call you Swampy.
It's fine.
You can call 478-9335, or if you're downstate, out of state, we're at 1-800-544-1150. So when did baseball start here in Delaware? When?
Well, the team that we're depicting, the Diamond State Baseball Club, was formed by a group of attorneys in Wilmington in October of 1865.
Okay.
Now, we're pretty sure there was baseball played in Delaware before that, but this was sort of the first formal club
that played by any kind of rules.
There were other like social clubs that would have played baseball, and they would have played by there was baseball rules published by the Knickerbocker Club out of New York as early as 1845.
Oh, okay.
So some of the social clubs would have played by a standard set of rules, but the Diamond State Club was the first sort of formal club that was formed for the specific purpose of playing baseball and challenging other teams and so on.
Of competition.
Right.
Now, when you talk about a social event, maybe John can answer this one. What do you mean by a social event?
Well, the first clubs were formed in the 1830s, not necessarily in Delaware, but around the country, and they weren't necessarily playing by what we would recognize as baseball rules. It was town ball. There were all sorts of different rules, and each club would have their own set of rules. And the emphasis there was on physical fitness. This is during the Industrial Revolution. Physical fitness, getting out and exercising, and then also there was a social aspect. So after, which was a very big part of what they did, and afterwards they would get together and celebrate maybe with a beer or an adult beverage, at a club. And so baseball was only just, or bat and ball games were only one part of what they did.
So really it was getting through the game as quick as they could to get to the beer in the saloon? Or
Exactly, right. And the challenge business really didn't come on until much later, until they were able to formalize and codify rules so that it made it possible for clubs to play other clubs. Most of the competition was intramural and just for fun.
Hey, Carl.
Yes.
Nobody's mentioned my one of my favorite baseball early heroes, Abner Doubleday. When are we going to talk about him?
because the Abner Doubleday myth is a myth. That's why. It was an invention made to sell the town of Cooperstown, New York, and it's been thoroughly debunked.
And also to demonstrate the Americanness of baseball, which is, of course, bunk as well.
So who invented baseball if it wasn't Abner Doubleday?
The short answer is nobody invented baseball. It evolved. There's cricket, there's rounders. Those kind of games evolved into some of the things John was mentioning. Town ball.
Old Cat.
There was a game called Old Cat. There was a game called was it Wild Squirrel or
right.
something, where you could run off into the woods and the
Wild Weasel.
The Wild Weasel. That was it.
Wild Weasel.
And you could literally run off into the wood. There was like no out of bounds, and they would have to then go after you with the ball. And but so there was all those games developed and had rules. And then in 1845 is when the Knickerbocker Club out of New York issues the rules. There was also a competitive, a different set of rules called the Massachusetts game.
I saw that one.
And those were their rules weren't published until 1858. By then, pretty much everywhere outside of New England was using what they called the New York rules.
Well, here in Delaware, I mean, the Diamond State team took off on October, you said 2nd, 1865?
October. Well, the formation was in October, and then they played their first game shortly thereafter, which was October 7th.
And that was 18. A win.
It was a pretty decisive win. They played the St. Mary's College boys, we're not really sure how the St. Mary's College guys knew the rules, other than the Diamond State Baseball Club probably explained it to them.
Right.
They did have an umpire. The umpire was the gentleman from St. Mary's.
Mr. Riley, yeah.
Yes. And they started the game at 2:30 in the afternoon on October 7th, so you can imagine the sun. They were sort of racing against the sunlight, and they did not actually finish the game. The Diamond States were batting in the bottom half of the eighth. They scored 22 runs in the bottom half of the eighth, and had not yet finished their game when it was called on account of darkness. So, was the game called on account of darkness, or was it called because
no mercy rule?
There wasn't a formal mercy rule, but sometimes games would be called on account of darkness when it was actually quite late out.
This kind of gave them a false sense of confidence, then, right? Didn't they shortly thereafter go and say Philadelphia?
They did have a false sense of confidence. They issued a challenge to the famous Athletic Baseball Club of Philadelphia. The Athletic Baseball Club was already a well-established club who regularly challenged teams from Brooklyn and from in New York, and what one of the things the Athletic Club specialized in was accepting challenges from these smaller clubs and going down there and saying, okay, we'll play you guys, and then they would just beat the tar out of them.
Yeah, from what I saw or understood, did they at one point give Diamond State the option of playing both first and second nines?
At some point during the game, the Philadelphia Athletics said, okay, when you guys are in the field, you can play your first nine and your second nine, 18 fielders at a time, and the Athletics still beat the Diamond State by a score of 104-7.
Holy mackerel. That was a complete 9-inning game, I guess.
That was a complete 9-inning game.
And these events were more instructional than anything, though it certainly was a challenge. I sincerely doubt Diamond State had any hope of upending the Quaker City team. At
that point, with so many runs being scored, I guess they started looking towards the banquet after that?
Or very much so.
were some of them already involved in the banquet?
Yeah, the Athletic Club had come in the night before, and they had the banquet the night before, which is probably a good idea in retrospect.
If you guys have any questions out there for these two gentlemen, you can call 478-9335, or the 1-800 number for those downstate or out of state is 1-800-544-1150. And we're going to be taking a break here shortly, but I also wanted to just touch on the quick steps, the Wilmington quick steps, because it seemed like Diamond State dominated, at least to me, from 1866 but they disbanded in 1875. So was it a steady decline, or?
Well, the 1875 club was actually a restart of the Diamond States. The Diamond States actually disbanded in like the early 1870s, 71 or 2. They had a really good track record of success their first year. They were 17-2. They brought in a player from. They actually brought in a player from the Philadelphia Athletics, a guy by the name of Fergie Malone, who was clearly the Diamond States' best player. He pitched for the Diamond States. When he pitched, he never lost a single game with the Diamond States. And he was, although the Diamond States were in name an amateur club, Fergie Malone had a cigar shop in Wilmington that was probably set up for him by the team leaders.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's kind of similar to what you see in college football today. Even though they're supposed to be amateurs, sometimes there are arrangements made, a no-show job kind of thing, that kind of, so there were shenanigans that went on. Teams wanted to win games. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And it was part two of the city wanting to be this economic power and show what it was about. And so these civic leaders got this club together so that they could challenge the Philadelphias and the Brooklyns. And it just didn't work out that way.
As we head into break here in a few seconds, is there a way, and we're going to talk about the current Diamond State Baseball Club in the next segment, but do you guys have a website?
Absolutely. We're at DiamondStateBaseball.com. Any inquiries about the team, and if we do put out a program, if you're interested in advertising, that kind of thing, you can send an email to info@DiamondStateBaseball.com. If you think you're interested in playing, send an email to recruiting@DiamondStateBaseball.com.
And how old do you have to be?
You can be anywhere from 18 to 80.
Oh wow!
and we've had some folks in our league that have been pretty well advanced in age. We're running 2 squads of 9, so we accept people of all sorts of skill levels. If you don't think you're that good of a baseball player, we can put you on our second 9, and we're looking for opportunities to run our second 9 this year. So
okay. Now I wanted to get into the current state of the Diamond State Baseball Club as it is constructed today, and John Medkeff Jr. has the floor on that.
Well, I founded the club after a false start in 2007. I didn't even know that there was something called vintage baseball. I was online researching old baseball in Delaware and came across something called vintage baseball and saw that people were playing without gloves and in these funny-looking uniforms, and found that there was a team in Maryland nearby that played, went down to see them with my son, and just fell in love with it. And it took me back to when I was a kid playing ball, green, field, blue sky, just the essence of the game, and thought that through a little bit of more research, found that there wasn't a team in Delaware, and Delaware was the only state on the East Coast at that time that didn't have a vintage team. So I set about starting a club. Had a false start in 2007, trying to get it going, and maybe underestimated a little bit what it would take. And then in 2008, redoubled the effort. We got it together. We had our first practice at Rockford Park in October of 2008. We formed over the winter and had our first game in 2009 after we located a field down at Fort DuPont near Delaware City. And we got a schedule together, and we went at it in the first game in April of 2009.
How many members did you have initially?
We had a little under 20. I believe we were about 18, and we hover around 20. We really we're always looking for more because, as Jeff had mentioned earlier, we field 2 9s. Our first 9 is very competitive, and in fact, we've developed into one of the stronger clubs in the Mid-Atlantic. And as a result, we do have a competitive 9, and then the other 9, we go out and we have fun. Not to say that the first 9 doesn't have fun as well, but the emphasis there is on competition. And then, as these old clubs did as well, they had several 9s. Now,
do you have one pitcher, or do you have like a starter, like a staff? I guess you play multiple positions, but...
Yeah. For the most part, the answer is yes. Generally, when we have one pitcher, he'll pitch the entire game.
Yeah, geez.
It's an underhanded motion, so it's not as much stress on the arm.
We did have one year, I think it was 2010, we had a gentleman show up, and we were waiting for someone to come, and he was supposed to pitch that first game, and he was running a little late, and we were like, Minnie, can you pitch? And he's like, yeah, I can pitch. He wound up pitching every pitch of every game all year. He didn't miss a game. He pitched the entire year.
The entire year. Is there such a thing as a closer?
No.
That wasn't invented until, I guess...
No. When you showed up in the 1860s with 9, you played with 9. They may bring 10 or 11 just in case someone got hurt. There was generally no substitution during the game. We take a little bit of liberty with that. We do substitute just to get guys playing time more than anything if we're not fielding both 9s. And typically we're playing double headers. So if we have the opportunity to field 2 9s, we do. But generally we're not doing that.
And I think Swampy, mentioned it earlier that you do play by the rules of 1864.
For the most part, we also play by later rules in the 1870s even. We don't play the overhand game. We don't go up into the 1880s and 90s where they're playing overhand because that changes the game quite a bit.
We're coming up on another break. So what was the website again to get in touch?
It's www.diamondstatebaseball.com.
Is there a phone number to contact as well, or?
You can 267-258-3939.
I was wondering what the best accomplishment of the team has been to this point.
Well, we've had a number of accomplishments in terms of on the field. We were very proud of our season last year. We belong to a group called the Mid-Atlantic Vintage Baseball League, and they held a championship tournament downstate last year, actually down near Harrington, Delaware, and we were the 6th seed in the sort of the tournament seeding, which meant we faced the number 3 and beat that team. We faced the number 2 and beat that team, and then we faced the number 1 for the championship, and we lost that game 4-3. So we were extremely proud of that. We had a really good group of guys last year, and we've got a lot of them coming back. But we're also very proud of our accomplishments in Delaware history, our relationships with the Department of Parks and Recreation. A couple of years ago, we won the Recreation and Park Society's Outstanding Organization Award. That was in 2012. We continue to research the history of baseball in Delaware, whether it's the Diamond States or other teams as well. And we're still sort of working on that to some extent. It's an ongoing project, along with getting outside and getting some exercise and playing baseball,
which is always good.
Right.
And with tryouts coming up soon for the Diamond State team?
We've already begun our preseason workouts. If you just contact us at that recruiting at diamondstatebaseball.com, we'll certainly get you in. You can come give it a try. If you're worried about catching a baseball barehanded, we'll walk you through it. It takes some getting used to, I'm not going to lie, but it's not that hard.
Do you need to have a nickname?
You don't have to have a nickname.
What's the rule?
But one will be given to you, right?
It's sometimes preferable if you come with a nickname. You may not want the nickname that we give you.
Swampy was one he actually chose.
Right. We probably one of our better ones was a gentleman who had a wardrobe malfunction in his first game. His nickname is Split.
Oh. And that's to emulate because everybody in the early 1800s had nicknames?
A lot of them had nicknames.
And that's how they were actually known.
Right. Everybody from Fergie Malone to Old Hoss Radburn to, a lot of, they pretty much all had nicknames.
Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Shoeless Joe.
Who actually played here, right?
Here in Wilmington?
He did appear a little bit in Wilmington during the First World War.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show here today, going for Delaware's Timeline on 1150 AM WDEL. I want to thank both John Medkeff Jr. and I'm going to say his name, Jeff Kabacinski, also known as Swampy. I want to thank them so much for taking the time to come in and share both baseball and brewing with us.